Naraskaram, YouTube. Welcome back to another video. Let's just get right back into it. I definitely feel like there's like a fine line between taking for inspiration or digesting content and then just mass consuming content. And we live in a space now where there's almost a commodification of that very same concept. So you're being fed more capitalism to stop you from engaging in capitalism. So it's like, buy this book, buy this specific shadow journal book, because this specific shadow journal book will help you to overcome your social media problem. It's like, it turns into a thing to where the thing that was actually set up to help me escape the system is keeping me stuck in the system because I'm just buying these things that are supposed to help me fix this problem. Now, don't get me wrong. I literally make similar product and similar content where I'm trying to push people more towards a mindful space. But I feel like even that within itself should not be overconsumed. I don't think I should be overconsumed just as much as I don't think any rap music or anything else should be overconsumed. I don't think you should be listening to me or anybody else that is of, I guess, more holistic content or content in this category or content in any category all day, every day, nonstop, because that just leads to rigidity. And as much as rigidity and a form of sturdiness is a necessary factor within life, when it comes to human individuality, rigidity is probably the crystallization of self, which is the ultimate destruction of self. Ultimately, you die when you stop learning and you stop evolving. That's when you die. When you choose to sit in whatever state of being you currently reside in, comfortable with whatever fears, insecurities, doubts, worries, physical limitations, when you sit within that and when you let that consume you and you let that become your reality, that is when you die. When you physically die, that's a completely different transitional period. What I'm talking about is being dead on earth. And sometimes we find ourselves in these headspaces because we just expect ourselves to do the work without thinking about doing the work. It's very hard to get to a point in time or a space as an individual where you can just wake up and do exactly what you're supposed to do every day without thinking about it. I'm not saying it can't be done, but what I am saying is it's very hard to do every single day without some form of conscious, responsible effort. You need to have some form of conscious, responsible effort behind the new actions that you want to implement into your life. So if you just sit down on your phone and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and watching video after video after video after video, eventually, because at this point, we're all pretty hip to the idea of doom scrolling, or we're hip to the idea of just scrolling on our phone for an endless period of time, waiting for some form of dopamine to hit us or for us to get so bored that we just fuck off and find something else to do. But what I found is after a while, I would just start consuming things on autopilot. So as opposed to going out of my way to research certain topics or find things that interest me, I would just open the app, whatever app it may be, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, for stimulation. So now, as opposed to looking for something specific or as opposed to finding something to kind of restore me, I'm just scrolling and waiting for that next hit. And don't get me wrong, I feel like exploring the internet within itself isn't a terrible thing either. Another problem I have is that I feel like people take way too much of a dogmatic stance when it comes to anything healthy. And then that within itself manifests as some form of unhealthiness, because it manifests psychologically as some form of rigid fixation, which is equally as unhealthy. So what happens is you go from browsing the internet, scrolling for hours, to you don't scroll at all, you don't use the internet at all, it's all a waste of time. But that within itself is also just pushing away a vital resource that we have that we did not have before. It's not a matter of getting rid of Snapchat or getting rid of Instagram or getting rid of YouTube. It's not a matter of not mindlessly, air quotations, consuming content. It's a matter of finding some sense of equilibrium within it so you could still hold on to your other aspirations. So you could still hold on to your own individuality. There's so many people that don't want to draw because they're comparing their literal 0 years of drawing experience to people that have been drawing for 5, 6, 20 years all over the internet. That's where it starts to become a problem. But by that same token, you can easily just look up drawing journey and watch somebody go from drawing just as bad as you, if not worse, to drawing like fucking Pablo Picasso. At any given moment, you could kind of change the narrative. What matters more so is that you get the information that allows you to do that. And 9 times out of 10, that information doesn't necessarily come from any external source. It just comes from you sitting down and swallowing the pill you didn't want to swallow. There's nothing that I can say to you that you haven't said to yourself or thought about yourself. The only thing that I did was give it to you in a digestible manner. You probably can't digest the medicine your body's producing just yet, so you have to take mine as a supplement. But eventually you'll reach the point where my words aren't sufficient enough, or this YouTuber's words aren't sufficient enough, or this person on TikTok, their words or their content, it's not sufficient enough. Eventually, in your evolution as a human being, you will reach the point where nothing that anybody else does in terms of expression is efficient enough to replicate your own expression. You're going to reach a point where there is no character that can embody who you are. There's nothing. There's going to be similarities, always, but there's not going to be a single individual that can embody what you are and replicate that signature that you have. And once you get to that point, it can't just be mindless consumption, or it can't just even be mindful consumption. Mindful consumption is just as dangerous as mindless consumption when it's done in vast quantities. It should be 90% effort and existence and 10% observation and studying. You see so many guys or people in general, they get stuck in these perpetual states of almost like analysis paralysis, or they get stuck in these perpetual states of waiting for the perfect opportunity. Your life has never been perfect, and it never will be perfect. Even if it's perfect to somebody else, it's not perfect to you. As long as you exist, there's always going to be some form of a struggle. There's always going to be some form of a fight. There's always going to be some form of a battle. Yeah, I mean, that's just your personal story. But living in this perpetual state where you think that you can avoid the pain forever, or you could avoid the resistance forever, is just unrealistic. Because the only thing that you do is you supplement the pain of actually achieving your goals with the pain of not chasing them. So you substitute the pain of enduring with the pain of regret. And the pain of regret not only lasts a lot longer, but it's usually irredeemable. You can't really come back from that many things you can regret. You only let them go. So learning to live more in a headspace to where you're just not waiting for the perfect opportunity all the time, and you're just making the opportunities for yourself. Instead of just consuming all the time, you create. And I'm not saying that you have to be a YouTuber, or you have to be an Instagram influencer, or you have to start a fucking business if that's not who you are. But what you should be doing is expressing and figuring out who you are in your own intimate space. The internet kind of skews everybody's perception in that way, to where as soon as you create something, you have to share it. You don't. Or you can just share it with the people that you love and you care about. Or you could just keep it in your room and just be proud of it yourself. You don't have to necessarily put something out there because you did it. You don't have to show everybody what you're eating or show everybody what you're doing. You could just do it. You could just be present and in your life actively creating it. And that's the difference. When you're sitting down looking at everybody else's life and you're scrolling through everybody else's life and kind of seeing what they have going on, you're not necessarily, you don't stop making a narrative about yourself. You don't stop thinking about yourself. You just change how you perceive yourself. So now you're just using relativity to make yourself feel worse about your own life. And that's where the overconsumption comes into play. If you just sit down and you look at a couple nice cars, you look at something that you genuinely enjoy, not something that you think you should want, but something that you actually want. Because there's a difference. And when you sit down and you see that thing for that 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, spend the next 23 hours and 30 minutes or the next 16 hours trying to figure out how to make that thing happen for yourself if that's what you really want. Or spend that time figuring out what you want for yourself. At the end of the day, yes, there is help on the internet. Yes, there is help in these books. Yes, there is help in all of these different spaces. But if you don't start creating these opportunities for yourself, if you don't start going within yourself to come up with the creative solutions to the problems that you have, then ultimately you die. Ultimately you crystallize. And that's not a life that I'm pretty sure any of us want to live. It's not that we're afraid of dying. We're just afraid of not really living. Most people, when they're about to die, or when they reach their deathbed and they have regret. Why? Because they didn't live. Nobody's actually afraid of dying. People are just afraid of not actually living. But they're also afraid to live as they live. So it's a matter of, are you going to overcome that fear or not? Are you going to let that fear stop you and keep you crystallized, Or are you going to break the mold? Are you going to rebuild yourself time and time again and figure out who you are and just continuously unravel and evolve? Because no matter which way you go, you're either going up or you're going down at any given moment. You're either going to crystallize or you're going to evolve.